Hi everyone, my name is Derek, also known as WebDancer on Board Game Geek and a few other places around the internet. Today I'll be doing a video review of the Heat, an expansion for the Police Precinct board game. Before I do, by way of disclosure, I do want to say that I was provided a preview copy of this expansion for volunteering to do a video review. A little while ago, Carl from Common Man Games had posted a thread on Board Game Geek looking for people to do a video review of this particular expansion, including those who had not done so before. I am one of those who had not done so before, but I want to give it a try to see if I like doing video reviews, and if I do, possibly go on to some other games I'd like to talk about. But even if I don't, I was interested in seeing where this particular expansion for Police Precinct was going. Police Precinct is one of the favorite games for my son and I to play together. We play a lot of two-player games of it. So I was curious just to take a look and let you guys know what I think. So that's the origin of this particular interview. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go over what you get if you buy this expansion, go over some of the cards and some of the rules, and then I'll come back and tell you what I think. Thanks. Alright, so let's take a look at what you get with this Heat expansion. First of all, you have the cards back here that are going to affect the game. The Specialists, which represent ride-alongs from other police precincts who will help you with crime and winning the game. And you have the Gear, which represents equipment that comes out, and again, you could stop by and pick it up and use it to help you out. Before we get into them, though, let me touch briefly on the setup chart and the rules. The game comes with about, I don't know, 3.5 cards worth of rules that teach you how to set up and play the game. And the setup chart is worth spending a little bit of time on. One of the things a lot of people complained about in the base game, and myself included, is that the difficulty could be somewhat erratic. Some people had an easy time playing the game. Some people had a difficult time playing the game. Sometimes when you change between different player counts, you would get a different difficulty experience. What I found personally is I do play a lot of two-player with my son. When you play two players and use the support vehicle, we find that we have a very easy time. We seldom lose, and a lot of times we'll win before the murderer even appears on the board, which is an instant win. And so the base game does give you ways that you can increase the difficulty, usually by, well, adjusting some of the things I'll go over with you here, changing some of the punks, adding or removing punks to the board, adding or removing emergencies, lengthening or shortening the time you have to play the game. But there were no specifics. You were kind of on your own to figure out what would work best for you. And that's good, because people could tailor the play experiences to their own personal preferences. But a problem with that is sometimes when you give people that much granularity without set levels, set checkpoints, it gets a little daunting. You know, maybe they changed something and they won easily. Well, was that because they changed it too far, or was it because they had a particularly easy draw of the cards that game? And so, you know, trying to tweak it by leaving everything up to the game player was a little bit daunting for a lot of folks. And I think the developers of the game took that into consideration when they came up with this expansion, because in the setup chart here for the Heat, what they did is give you set difficulty levels or challenge levels for the expansion. And I do think this is something that is appreciated. If you look along here on the card on the left-hand side here, you have different challenge ratings, challenge names. Difficulty of easy, hard, very hard, or no way. And it still pretty much does the same thing that they let you do in the base game. You can add or remove punks from the game, add or remove emergencies, or just add emergencies, I should say. Remove police cars, which is the starting allotment. It gives you less than you normally would. And basically it gives you one of 4 levels you can try. A small nitpick, it goes directly from easy to hard. There's no normal, so I guess if you want to play on the normal difficulty, you have to not use this expansion, because it's a pretty granular development from easy to hard. That's a minor nitpick. If you count hard as normal, you'll be fine. There are some other aspects of each level. Manic, which basically turns the murderer into a slasher movie villain. He's as strong as 6 men by himself, so it requires additional effort to bring him down. Manic and Crunch. Crunch reduces the time you have to play the game. But all in all, it gives people a nice base point where they could compare with other gamers. Yeah, you know, I was able to beat it on very hard. I was able to beat it on hard. I was able to beat it on easy. And the set levels showing what you need to do to get to those levels is really appreciated. So I do think this was a great idea. As far as rules go, this is the #1 thing that the expansion added to the game. Aside from that, you have the cards themselves. These are the specialists. Again, they represent characters coming in from other precincts there to help you out. I should say both the cards, both the specialists and the gear, do help you make the game a little bit easier. They're both there to help you, so they help you in resolving, arresting punks or solving emergencies, which is great. But the setup chart does take that into consideration. Even if you look on the easy level, for example, where it says punks removed, what punks removed means is that it's actually removed from the game. And when all the punks in the game become out on the board, your crime track will go up by 1. So by removing punks, it actually gives you less leeway. You have to deal with the punk threat sooner than you would. So if you look even on the easy level, they're asking you to do things, 1 police card removed. That makes the game more challenging. So the game knows that by using both sets of cards, the game becomes a little bit easier, and the setup chart helps you adapt and make that balance out. But anyway, the specialists represent characters coming to help you out from other districts. If I flip it over, show you one of them. This here is Joseph Benkowski, the crime analyst. Each of the cards, each of the specialist cards has a cost. If you look down here in the lower right, this particular one is free. Some of them might demand police cards, donuts, things like that. In this case, you would just go by the police station, and I'll go more into that a little bit later. And you could add him to your car. Every person can carry 2 specialists and 2 pieces of gear with them. Before they, once they discard them, then they can restock up to 2 and 2. What this guy would do, for example, just to give you an idea of what these folks can help you do, he helps you avoid an event card you just drew after reading it by placing it at the bottom of the stack and drawing a new one. So it could be useful towards the end of the game. Perhaps you have an urgent yellow card on the board and another one comes out that'll make your crime track go up. You could discard that and pick another one, so he's useful there. The next woman is Amelia Cruz, a special agent. Now, she does have a cost of 1 donut. She's really useful, and that's why she has a cost of a donut. She allows you to successfully handle any emergency in any location and receive all applicable rewards. This ability is in addition to your normal action. So she's pretty powerful. You could basically pick one of the hardest emergencies out there on the board and just take care of it using her. So those are some of the things that specialists can help you out with. And there's 6 more of those. I won't go into those, but they have the same cost. They'll give you an ability. Leave them for a little bit of surprise if you pick up the game. If you look at the gear, again, gear is something that'll help you out. This particular one is a shotgun. This one also has a cost. This cost is for free. Roll 2 extra dice when you attempt to arrest a member of a street gang. So if you're going to make an arrest and the shotgun's available at the police headquarters, you might want to swing by and pick that up. Now this one here, the forensics kit, you'll see it does have a cost. That's 2 police cards. So that's fairly expensive. Those police cards could be something that could be giving you another in-game benefit or helping out one of your fellow officers, in an emergency or an arrest or even an investigation. So that's not cheap. But it does have a good benefit. Draw 2 extra cards when taking an investigation action if done without any sort of assistance. So if you're the lone wolf forensics operator and you're doing basically a lot of the investigations by yourself, this card comes in very handy by letting you draw the 2 extra cards. So it's something if you are pressed for time and you can really only spare 1 officer for the investigation, it could come in pretty handy. And again, that has a cost of 2 police cards. And there's 6 more of those. There's 8 and 8, so you're getting 16 new cards in your game. How you pick up these cards, they appear at the police precinct right here in one of 2 ways. One way is every time your crime track goes up. So whenever you're doing poorly at the game and you're running into a little bit of trouble, 1 of each, 1 gear, 1 specialist comes and appears at the police precinct. They do appear face up, so you do know what you're getting. You could swing by and decide if you want to pick them up. Now, when you do pick them up, sometimes it's pretty tricky. You have to decide if going to the police station is worth not going after something else that might be putting you and your fellow players in a precarious position. Do you ignore those street gang members to go swing by the police station? You can do what's called fast delivery, in which you just drive by the police station, and if you discard a police card, you don't have to stop. But otherwise, you do have to stop there and pick up the gear or the specialist, and that could be using your time that you could otherwise be using to really help out the other officers or just prevent things from getting out of hand. So it does help you make it gives you some hard decisions, some things to think about as you're playing the game. The other thing you can do is they'll come out when you earn a donut doing another mission. If you get the last card in a particular phase of the investigation, or you solve an emergency that gives you a donut as a reward, you roll a die. And if you roll a 5, you get to pick one card from either deck that appears here. If you roll a 6, you could take one card from each deck. So in addition to them appearing when things are going bad, sometimes when you do something that earns yourself a reward, you'll get to roll a die and get gear or specialist when something good is going on. So that's pretty useful too. That's about it. Let me tell you what I think about this expansion. All right, so that's what you get in the Heat expansion. Do I like it? Yeah, I do actually. I think it does 4 things really well. One of the things it does is the actual cards, the specialists, and the gear really help with some of the emergent story that arises from playing the game. The very first time I played, I had a riot and a prison break, pretty much one right after the other, so thugs were flying out of the police headquarters and running down the road, and immediately after that a shotgun appeared right at the police station. So they're running into a little bit of trouble and they decide to break out the heavy artillery. It was great to have one of my officers swing by the police station, pick up the shotgun, and go to town and help try to calm the situation down. As far as cards that appear to add to the story, that's the thematic story that's generated by playing this game, I do think that this expansion does well in that regard. The second thing I think it does well in adding is just that difficult decisions. It adds some more decisions to the base game that you don't see. As I mentioned briefly when I was going over how you pick up the cards at the police station, sometimes you really have to think about whether it's worth doing that. For example, the shotgun appears maybe early in the game, and if you pick that up, you'll have a much easier time dealing with punks. But say you're on the left side of the board, in order to make that trip, you have to ignore an emergency that has the urgent marker on it. So if you make that trip and pick up the shotgun, if you're unfortunate enough to draw the next emergency that causes that urgent marker to fail that emergency out and your crime track level to go up by 1, maybe you made the wrong decision. And there are a few things like that over the course of the game. The developers and the designers did a good job of making a lot of the gear and the specialists tempting enough to make you think about that. Is it worth maybe risking the chance that thug spot's going to turn into a street gang if you let it go for one more turn, if you get an unfortunate card draw? But if you do that, you get to pick up some really nice gear, some really good equipment, and a specialist that could help you out with the rest of the game. In addition to that, the cost involved. Do you want to spend 2 police cards to get maybe a really good piece of gear? But if you do that, then maybe you can't help someone else, on the emergency they're going to the next turn. And if you hadn't spent that 1 emergency assistance police card on the gear, maybe that was the difference between success and failure of your fellow officer's turn the next turn. So it really does add some interesting decisions to the base game that weren't there otherwise. So I think it does a good job of that too. On a minor note, I do like rolling to see if the cards appear when you do something good. It's just a little bit of extra, rolling for bonus. Come on 5, come on 6. Something small, but it adds a little bit of extra roll for good things to the game. And then going back to the rules and the instructions, I do think the setup chart that gives you set levels of how to modify the game to hit the very hard level or the hard level is appreciated, and it prevents people from fiddling with each individual bit on their own to determine what's best for them. They could do that anyway, that's still in the game, but to give people just some base points that they could jump off of, I think is really good and really appreciated. What the game doesn't do so well, really I can't say that there's anything in the expansion that is a problem. My one main area, which is strange to say this for an expansion, is pretty much something it doesn't do rather than something it does poorly. I played Police Precinct, the base game, a lot. And one of the issues with Police Precinct is it works off a deck of event cards, and almost every game you see almost every card. So you know, for example, well, did we have that gas leak yet? No, that's probably going to happen soon. You know, maybe drift the guy over towards that part of the board. You know, a car is going to be stolen soon. So after you've played it a few times, you get a feel for what the city's going to throw at you. You know what crimes are out there. You know what you're going to see. This doesn't really expand that at all. It's interesting. I do think it improves the base game, but it doesn't refresh the base game. It doesn't give it extra replayability, in my opinion. I think it's better. I think if you're picking up Police Precinct for the first time, you should get it with the Heat. The actual game is more robust, and for the reasons I mentioned previously. And if you really like it, you're not burnt out on what Police Precinct, the base game, is giving you, if you're still pulling it out and playing it regularly, by all means, definitely pick up the Heat. Again, it adds to the game and makes it a better game. But if you're at the point where, you know, you've played it a lot, it doesn't make it to your table because, yeah, you know, you kind of know what it's going to throw at you, you've seen the same things over and over again. I don't feel like this adds anything new in that regard. So if you're, you know, a little tired of playing the game, this probably isn't going to make you want to pull out the game and play it some more. On the other hand, if you're just getting the game or you're still playing out the game and enjoying it, I think it's a no-brainer expansion. I really do think you should pick it up. I do understand the Kickstarter has just ended, but when this is available for retail sale, I think it's around $20 bucks, $25 maybe. I do think it's worth picking up. I'm glad I have it. And I am looking forward to see what comes next from this particular developer as far as expansion for this base game goes. So that's what I think. Thanks for bearing with me. You know, I know my audio may not be good. My video may not be good. I may not be good. It's my first time doing this using very basic equipment. So please leave comments, feedbacks if you like. Otherwise, if you decide to check this Heat expansion out, I hope you like it. Thanks a lot.